10 spine-chilling encounters uncovered in deep Appalachia's cursed woods. Terrifying horror tales. Claire's heart raced as she drove her children away from all they knew. The city was a desolate memory, but every mile brought a haunting echo that followed them, whispering threats from deep within the mist-shrouded Appalachian hills. This house, inherited from a father she barely knew, was supposed to be a refuge. But as they approached, the silhouette loomed like a dark omen against the fading light, an old two-story relic that felt more alive than any home should. The first night settled with an unsettling calm. Sam and Annie fell asleep quickly, lost in the sweet embrace of tired limbs. But Claire lay awake, shivers crawling across her skin, listening to the wind howl through the trees, each gust stretching into a sinister laugh. Shadows flickered at the corners of her vision, gnawing at her sanity. "It's just the woods," she whispered to herself, struggling to shake the feeling that something old and dark was watching. The next morning brought mist that clung like wet silk, sapping warmth and filling her with dread. Underneath the ethereal beauty, the hills felt different, alive, too sentient. Locals in neighboring towns greeted her with cold glances, their words dripping with cryptic warnings about ancient spirits and curses. Claire laughed it off, dismissing their fears as ignorance, but their faces haunted her mind. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As night descended, Claire's exhaustion won, but not before she scanned the house one last time. She awoke with a jolt, panic flooding her senses. The children were gone. The front door stood ajar, inviting shadows from the woods to creep into her home. Heart pounding, she stumbled through the threshold, calling their names, desperate and trembling. "Sam! Annie!" Nothing but silence echoed back, the rustling leaves mocking her fear. She reached the tree line, each step heavier than the last. The woods loomed taller, shadows intertwining into grotesque forms. As she peered into the blackened depths, something caught her eye, a flash of movement. Was it her children? Hope ignited momentarily, only to be extinguished as deep laughter echoed around her, childlike but devoid of joy. Claire stumbled upon an ancient stone etched with familiar symbols, ones she had only known from her father's whispered tales. The stories of curses, of family ties binding them to the land, gripped her mind with chilling finality. "What have I done?" she gasped, the truth crashing down upon her like a wave of icy water. And there they were, Sam and Annie, reaching towards a shimmering light nestled deep within the heart of the forest. Claire's breath caught as she lunged forward. But a dark figure emerged, a neighbor, someone she thought she could trust. "You've unleashed what was never meant to be found," their words hissed, a dark promise tumbling into the void. With dawning horror, Claire felt the forest wrap its tendrils around her, tightening grips that made her see the web of darkness swirling around her children. The choice before her loomed like a gaping maw: sacrifice her soul to save them or lose everything to the cursed heritage she never wanted. What remained of her heart raced as she stepped deeper into the quagmire, ready to confront the shadows bending towards her. With each heartbeat, she was pulled further into the unholy maw of ancient secrets, the fate of her family shimmering just out of reach. Fear gripped Claire as she squared her shoulders, the woods darkened further, seeming to close in like a living entity. The laughter echoed again, wrapping around her like a cold embrace. It felt wrong, so wrong, as if they were mocking her desperate plight. She hesitated, mind racing. A choice that felt like the end of all reason lay before her. "Sam! Annie!" The words clawed at her throat, strained against all too evident dread. The faces of her children flashed in her mind, a smile from Sam, Annie's twirling laughter. She would do anything to pull them back from the brink. The dark figure, that damned neighbor who had warned her, blocked her path. Their eyes glinted with a terrifying knowledge, lips twisted into a knowing grin. You don't understand, Claire. They've been chosen. You can't save them. The air thickened, the trees groaned as if protesting her defiance. Words danced like fireflies, her father's whispers reverberated, tales of bloodlines cursed, of spirits demanding tribute from the living. The ground felt unnatural, as if breathing, quaking beneath her feet. Claire took a step back, and the figure laughed, a sound that slithered into the marrow of her bones. No! She shouted, and charged forward, barreling past the shadow. She would not be deterred. The shimmering light beckoned still, along with her children, but now it felt more sinister. A hunger lurked behind its glow, an insatiable desire pulsing from the heart of the forest. Thorns clawed at her shins as she stumbled deeper into the obscurity. The laughter turned to cries, faint, lingering specters of her children. Help us, Mommy. Innocent voices twisted into something monstrous, luring her deeper, leaving hot trails of guilt searing through her mind. Just a little further, Claire murmured to herself, each word a fragile thread binding her sanity. I can reach them, but the branches reached out, as if the trees themselves conspired against her. Shadows danced, shifting shapes, morphing into creatures she didn't dare name. The very roots seemed to grasp at her feet, reluctant to let her pass. Mommy. Their calls cut through the thick air, urgency tinged with a distorted mirth. She pressed on, heart wild against her ribcage, cold sweat slicking her palms. Her fingers brushed the surface of the ancient stone she had discovered. The symbols pulsated, glowing faintly in response to her presence. The tension in the air thickened, the weight of choices bore down like iron shackles. Through the branches, she caught sight of the children again, an ethereal shimmer bathed them in light. But the sight twisted knife-like in her gut. Don't go into the light, not yet. She cried out, the sound tearing at the very fabric of the night. But it was too late. She felt an unseen force pulling her as she took another step, and the world shifted around her. A heavy shadow stirred nearby, a presence darker and more foreboding than any mortal fear. The laughter transformed, now sounding grotesque and distorted, weaving in maneuvers that sent cascades of dread rippling through her. Claire's choice loomed larger than ever. What must I do to save them? She mumbled through trembling lips. The unseen watcher exhaled, the breath hot and rancid, fanning the flame of her rising panic. As the shadows deepened and dread crept closer, Claire realized she had only the faintest grip on the remnants of her resolve. The decision raced toward her like a locomotive, leaving nothing but a haunting question: what price would she have to pay to pull her children from this twisted realm? And then came the rustle behind her, a shift in the wind, a whisper close to her ear: something dark was rising. The air crackled, charged with a palpable tension as Claire spun around, heart hammering wildly. Her breath quickened, an almost primal response to the unseen presence lurking just beyond her sight. The trees whispered, twisting their gnarled branches as if sharing secrets of the night. Every shadow danced, flickering in her peripheral vision, taunting her with the possibility of whatever lurked nearby. Who's there? She croaked, voice cracking like dry leaves underfoot. The echo faded, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. The laughter of her children morphed into an eerie melody, a taunt mocking her desperation as if the forest itself fed on her fears. With renewed purpose, she took a step back toward the flickering light. Hold on! She shouted, willing herself forward. She felt a horrifying mix of hope and despair coil in her stomach. The light pulsed, drawing her closer with each heartbeat, yet something about it felt wrong. Shadows flicked out from behind the trees, flickering in and out of existence. Mommy! The cry was sharper now, more insistent. It sent shards of icy fear stabbing through her. Resolute, Claire rushed through the underbrush, branches and thorns tearing at her clothing. She pressed on, fighting against the prickling dread crawling across her skin. And then came a voice, not her children's, but something sinister, hissing just beside her. You cannot save them. It was close, breathing down her neck, rancid and vengeful. "Get away from me!" she screamed, spinning around, hands balled into fists against the unseen specter. Silence fell heavily, enveloping her like a shroud. The trees leaned in, almost curiously, creaking with anticipation. As she took a quick breath, Claire caught a fleeting image in the corners of her vision, dark figures shifting in rhythm with the trees. They twisted and turned, their elongated shadows flickering like flames on the forest floor. Panic gripped her, she staggered back, almost tripping over a root that twisted like a serpent in the dark. Suddenly, the world tilted. The shimmering light shifted, morphing into a swirling vortex at a distance. It felt alive, pulsating with an insatiable hunger. A chilling thought gripped her: what if this light wasn't salvation but a dark void craving life? "Sam! Annie!" she called again, voice cracking, desperation lacing her words. But all she received was silence, an oppressive stillness that seemed to mock her. Claire's thoughts raced. She pictured Sam, all scruffy hair and wide eyes, and Annie, twirling in a sundress under the summer sun. "I will come for you," she cried, stepping closer to the light, the pull growing stronger. But then the shadows erupted, howling around her like a maelstrom of rage. The wind howled, and the air grew frigid as figures emerged. The dark entity now danced in the light's periphery, twirling and beckoning, a grotesque parody. Claire's heart sank, terror wrapping around her throat. Was this the price? She could feel herself teetering on the edge of something ancient, something that wanted to consume her whole. And still, the laughter persisted, mocking her as it filled the air with twisted echoes of her children's voices. "Leave them alone!" Claire bellowed, tears streaming down her cheeks. But the laughter only deepened, a horrible symphony that drowned her pleas. She felt the force drawing her closer, the weight of that dark presence clawing at her very essence, the shimmer promising everything she desired while tethered to something insatiable lurking beneath its surface. It was a promise that shimmered like a mirage, and she could feel herself slipping. A final glimpse of her children bathed in that light ignited something fierce within her. With every ounce of strength, she pushed back against the tide of shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. "I'll find you!" she screamed to the darkness, determination surging like fire through her veins. Then she felt a shift, the wind changed. And just as she thought she could withstand any force, a voice emerged from the abyss, whispering with raw intent, "But what if? You are the price?" As the words curled around her mind, Claire realized, in that dreadful moment, the entity had no intention of letting her leave. What sacrifice would she be forced to make to save those she loved? And as the shadows surged forward, a single thought lingered: who truly had been chosen? The shadows didn't just surge, they roiled like smoke, and Claire felt tendrils snaking around her ankles, pulling her back toward the swirling light. Panic ignited in her mind, a frantic urgency clawing at her. How could she save them? The laughter twisted, becoming a cacophony that echoed her worst fears, a grim symphony that resonated with her flesh and bone. "Help me!" she cried, her voice barely making the journey through the oppressive air. But the whispers answered, disembodied and sinister, tickling her ears with words she didn't want to hear. Join them, be a part of the light. She twisted, yanking her foot free from the grip of the shadows, feeling the coldness bite into her flesh. The sensation was numbing, seeping through her skin, and she stumbled backward, heart racing, lungs gasping for air, heavy with foreboding. A shrill giggle cut through the silence, and Claire froze. The sound made her stomach churn, a chilling prelude to a nightmarish revelation. "Mommy!" It was Annie's voice, sweet and innocent, yet twisted with an unearthly undertone that made Claire shudder. "Annie!" she screamed, arms reaching into the darkness, desperate to pull her daughter closer. The light pulsed violently, and for a split second, she saw them, her children, silhouetted against that aching brightness, faces pale, mouths moving, but no sound escaping. Their eyes were wide and empty, reflecting nothing but fear. "The price," the voice hissed again, more insistent now, swarming around her like a cyclone, pressing in on her thoughts. They yearned for warmth, for life. But warmth comes at a cost. With a gut-wrenching twist of her heart, Claire realized, what would she have to offer? Would she trade her own essence for them? Could she? A flood of memories surged through her mind: Sam's laughter on summer days, Annie spinning joyfully, her hair dancing like sunlight. The thought of losing them twisted her insides into knots. Get away from them. I'll never relinquish my children, she yelled, feeling strength bubbling in defiance. For a moment, the shadows recoiled, hesitant to approach, and the laughter faded into nervous whispers. But it was fleeting. The vortex pulsed with malicious energy, and Claire pressed onward. Come to me, she urged to the flickering shapes. The air quivered, and the figures wrapped around her more tightly, each shadow a cold reminder of the entity's chilling intent. Suddenly, a memory sliced through her terror: a voice, a warning. Always look beneath the surface. It was a ghost of her own thoughts, perhaps a memory of her mother. The words echoed in her mind, and realization hit her like a punch. The light. It was not a promise, but a trap. The love she felt for her children could be weaponized, warped into a currency in this malevolent game. Stop! Claire shouted, firm now, and the shadows halted for just an agonizing moment, almost like the forest itself paused to listen. But only for a moment. She sprinted again, stumbling toward the light, the dizziness of fear clouding her mind as she reached for her children, each moment pulling her deeper into the unseen snare. Join us, Claire, the shadows hissed, seductive and inviting. Become a part of the eternal circle. The words echoed within her, heavy with promises and deceit. Claire hesitated. Within that shimmering vortex was the possibility of everything she loved, but wasn't it all a lie? The suspense hung thick in the air, and despair trembled at the edges of her thoughts. What price would be demanded? And could she truly pay it? Just then, a spark of real light cut through the dark veil. It shimmered like hope on the brink of extinguishing, illuminating a dark path that felt like a glimmer of escape. Mommy! Annie's voice rang out, clearer now, desperately hopeful. In that moment, Claire's heart raced with the possibility, but terror took root. She couldn't let fear dictate her next move. As the shadows swirled around her, whispering sweet deceptions, she dared to step forward, feeling the weight of their hungry gazes pulling at her. I will not become your sacrifice, she shouted defiantly, pushing against the tide. But was that enough to sever the bond? The shadows lunged forward as she plunged towards the flickering light, teeth bared in silent fury. The forest screamed in response, and Claire could hardly breathe as she strained to reclaim her children from the void. And in that moment, as she leaped toward salvation, the light winked out completely, plunging her into darkness. What awaited her on the other side? What, or who, would she encounter in that terrifying void? Cold engulfed Claire as darkness swallowed her whole. The weight of it pressed down, heavy and thick, like drowning in an endless void. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, loud and frantic, reverberating against the silence. She felt the shadows retreating, but their presence still clung like a whisper on her skin. Annie. Sam. The names escaped her lips as ragged breaths, desperation slipping through the cracks of her fear. She blinked against the nothingness, but the darkness wrapped around her, tight and unyielding. Then, a flicker. The scantest glimmer shimmered in the depths, and Claire turned toward it. Was it real? Hope ignited, fragile and wavering, but she didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, her foot finding purchase on a solid surface, cold stone beneath her bare feet. It felt solid, yet beneath, something pulsed, thrumming like a heartbeat of its own. The light intensified, cutting through the shadows, revealing twisted roots snaking out around her like serpent arms, grasping and pulling. Panic clawed at her throat. She couldn't linger. Mommy. That hauntingly sweet voice again. Claire felt it like a blade, sharper than the shadows. It was Annie, calling to her from depths unknown. "Where are you?" Claire shouted, fear twisting her insides, terror clenching her throat. Silence, thick and suffocating, answered back. Or was it laughter? A jagged symphony of quiet, echoing all around her. She could almost hear them, the faint whispers laced with malice and mockery, just beyond her perception. "Join us, Claire," they cooed, the words wrapping around her, tempting yet threatening. She swallowed hard, remembering their faces. The light spiraled again, illuminating grotesque figures in the periphery of her vision, dancing just beyond reach, faint silhouettes of her children, their faces drained of color, eyes wide and unblinking. "Annie, Sam. I'm coming," she cried, though doubt gnawed at her. What if she couldn't reach them? What if they were lost forever? Moving faster, she plunged deeper into the light's embrace. But the brightness began to fade, the shadows curling back like hungry wolves. Silence filled her ears, followed by a creeping dread, deeper than before. "Mommy." This time, the voice was closer. Claire's heart leapt. She sprinted, struggling against the tendrils reaching for her, each touch icy and gut-wrenching. The stone beneath her feet turned slick, as if coated in something dark and slick. Then, a vision flooded before her. A hidden scene materialized within the rock. It depicted a child, a shadow of Annie, playing in a field of sunflowers that turned spectral under a cloak of night. The flowers withered and shrank as Claire watched, shadows creeping closer until the child's laughter morphed into a scream. The image shattered in 1,000 shards, reality crashing back as a thunderous roar erupted from the darkness. The shadows screamed, furious at being seen. The ground shook beneath her, and Claire stumbled, fighting to maintain balance. "Run!" screamed a voice in her head, familiar yet foreign, urging her to escape. "I won't leave you," Claire cried, heart breaking as the shadows converged, flooding her vision with darkness again. The ground opened up then, gaping like a ravenous maw. She fell into it, grasping for the light that dimmed above her, the sounds of her children's cries echoing in the wretched air. Fear surged, a primal instinct to survive, but the shadows tightened their grip. "Mommy," the word sliced through her heart, igniting fury and desperation. With a guttural roar, she surged against the shadows with renewed strength. "I am not afraid of you." But with each pulse of her defiance, the dark shifted, enveloping her once more, smothering any glimmer of hope. The void whispered secrets, twisted memories, and unspoken fears. Claire could feel the shadows pressing closer, hungry for something, anything to tether her to their world. And then something sharp pierced her skin. A splinter of light broke through the gloom, blinding her momentarily. But was it salvation or another deception? In that heartbeat of uncertainty, a blood-curdling scream erupted, reverberating like an echoing bell, and Claire felt herself pulled toward it, drawn into the chaos. What awaited her at the end of that terror? Could she truly escape, or would she become another lost soul in the clutches of darkness? Claire fell, spiraling deeper into the void, the echoing scream wrapping around her like barbed wire. The sensation was dizzying, a whirlpool sucking her into its heart. Her breath caught in her throat, panic washing over her like cold water. She fought against the abyss, but it seethed with dark, malevolent energy, a living entity determined to consume her. "Annie! Sam!" Her voice echoed, fractured and distant, lost to the chaos. Then, suddenly, she hit a surface solid ground yet slick with something warm and pulsing. She rolled to her side, gasping, feeling her heart pounding like war drums in her chest. As her eyes adjusted, shadows peeled away, revealing a small, dim chamber. The walls dripped with dark ooze, and the air was thick with an acrid stench. "What is this place?" she murmured, trying to catch her breath. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Claire turned sharply, straining to see through the gloom. And there, huddled in the corner, was a figure small, frail, drenched in shadows. Claire's heart twisted at the sight. Annie? The girl looked up, her face framed by wild strands of hair, eyes wide and glassy. Mommy. Claire rushed forward, but as she drew close, the shadows closed in again, a pack of snarling beasts ready to claim their prey. No. Not again. Annie recoiled, fear etched into her features. You shouldn't have come. It's too late. Claire froze, the weight of those words sinking into her. What do you mean? We have to leave. Tears glistened in Annie's eyes. The shadows, they're everywhere. They've taken Sam. He's lost. Her voice broke, turning into a choked sob. No. Claire reached for her daughter, desperation clawing at her throat. We can find him. Together. But as their hands touched, the dark pulsed violently. An overwhelming chill swept through the air, and the room itself seemed to sway. A horrid laugh split the silence, echoing through the chamber as gray shadows twisted around the little girl like cursed smoke. Join us, they hissed, voices layered, sinister. Claire felt terror tightening around her heart. Annie! Fight them! Claire shouted, a primal scream of defiance rising in her throat. It couldn't end like this. No! Mommy! Annie shrank back, shadows biting at the edges of her form. With a howl of despair, Claire leapt forward, pushing against the dark. She yanked Annie forward, but it felt like pulling against the tide. The shadows felt alive, clawing at her skin, whispering secrets of despair into her ears. You cannot escape. Suddenly, Claire stumbled back, landing hard on the slick stone floor as the world around her started to shatter. The walls cracked, light seeping through the fissures, blinding her momentarily. Then, a glimpse of a familiar face appeared in the breaking light. Sam! Mom! Help me! He was trapped, silhouetted against a swirling mass of darkness. Sam! Claire cried, adrenaline surging. The shadows screeched, losing ground against the brightness. Mommy! Please! Sam's voice broke with fear, and Claire felt her heart fracture once again. Hold on. I'm coming for you. She lunged toward him, dragging Annie along, the gap between them narrowing. But just as Claire reached out, tendrils of darkness lashed out, snatching at Annie. Claire! The shadows howled, angering at her defiance. The room spun, distorting under the crushing weight of despair and dread. In that breathless moment, Claire faced a choice: to plunge deeper in pursuit of her son or to let go of Annie and fight the shadows alone. The choice blurred, fear cracking her resolve. Annie! Do you trust me? Claire shouted, digging deep for courage amidst the panic washing over them. Yes. The child answered, voice shaky but resolute. Then run. Claire screamed, pushing her daughter toward the light. As shadows twisted and whirled, capturing the air in chill, Claire sprinted after Sam, desperate and wild. But were the shadows blocking her way or leading her down a far darker path? And then came the voice again, chilling and triumphant. Did you really think you could escape? The darkness surged, ready to consume her once more. What would Claire find on the other side of that suffocating abyss? Would she break through, or was this the final descent into madness? Claire's heart raced as she navigated the chaotic swirl of shadows, each step a struggle against the unseen hands gripping her ankles. The darkness thickened, wrapping tightly like a noose, but she pressed onward, pulling every ounce of strength within her. Sam's terrified face flickered in her mind, fueling her desperation. Hold on, buddy, she yelled, though she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were mocking her. The voice echoed in her mind, dripping with disdain, he's lost, Claire. You all are. With renewed determination, she pushed toward the light, grasping at the fading silhouette of her son. The oppressive darkness recoiled, but merciless tendrils reached out, caressing her skin like icy fingers. Every heartbeat echoed dread, drowning out reason. Then, she saw him again. Sam was there, barely visible against a wall of nothingness that surged as if breathing. "Mom! Help!" His voice cut through the chaos, a lifeline thrown into a stormy sea. "Sam!" Claire screamed, lunging desperately, but the shadows lunged faster. Billowing forms twisted in the edges of her vision, taunting her with whispers of despair. "Join us," they hissed, their voices a chorus of sorrow. Claire faltered, the weight of their offer heavy. What lay beyond? Maybe peace if she just gave in. No. Claire shook her head violently. "I want tea." Breathless, she drove her way through, her arms cut and stung, but she wouldn't relent. Sam's cries shattered her resolve, pulling her back from the brink. "Mommy, I can't hold on. Just a few more steps." Claire grit her teeth, forcing herself to believe. But the light flickered and waned, darkness engulfing the hope that sparked within her. A jagged crack echoed through the chamber, the walls pulsating with vibration. The shadows recoiled momentarily, released in the quake, and Claire seized the opportunity. She darted toward her son. Suddenly, a shadow burst forward, becoming a twisted face, eyes glowing with malevolent delight. "You're too late, Claire," it sneered. "Once you enter the dark, you're ours." "No!" Claire screamed, but the word felt feeble against the relentless surge of terror. Within an instant, the world shifted. Everything around her blurred, warped, and darkened. The light faded to a thin line as Sam's silhouette vanished behind a thick curtain of shadow. Claire's heart dropped. "No!" She bellowed, panic climbing into her throat, but the darkness swallowed her scream, twisting her away from the path forward. A piercing sound rang out, much like a cry but devoid of humanity, resonating deep in her bones. She staggered back, crushed under the weight of despair. The shadows closed in, pressing against her, pinning her thoughts as they hissed and howled. Claire felt herself being pulled into their depths, a helpless marionette in a grotesque dance. She fought, clawed, struggling, but the darkness grew heavier, feeding on her fear, each shadow a whisper reminding her of defeat. "You lost them both." Desperation morphed into fury. "No! I will not let you win." With that, an unexpected flash ignited in her mind. The fleeting memory of Annie's determination and trust. Something burned within her, a resolve not to give in. Then a sudden, shattering crack tore through the chamber, and for a fleeting moment, Claire glimpsed the light breaking through the dark. "Sam! Annie!" She shouted, feeling the surge of power swell again. "I'm coming for you." As the shadows writhed, Claire dove into the breaking light, praying it would guide her home. But what awaited her on the other side? Would it be salvation or a deeper nightmare? Only time would tell. Claire's eyes opened, but she was still suspended in darkness. It enveloped her like a suffocating fog, and the taste of iron lingered in her mouth. Was it her blood? Panic surged through her veins. She struggled to remember what had happened just moments before. Hadn't she leaped toward the light? The silence felt oppressive, not a single sound breaking the veil of shadow around her. She took a cautious step, her foot landing on something slick. Heart pounding, she grimaced. "Blood? Sam!" She called, her voice echoing eerily, swallowed immediately by the void. There was no response, only the shuffling of shadows around her, lingering like ghosts taunting her. She moved forward, the floor uneven beneath her feet. Each cautious step felt like a betrayal of her fight against the dark. Footfalls were punctuated by distant whispers, a cacophony of voices layered over one another. "You should have stayed. Don't disturb us," they sang, sweet and sinister. Claire pressed her back against a cold wall, bracing herself. She thought of Sam, how he needed her. This couldn't be it. She took a deep breath, a calm she didn't feel, and pushed onward. The shadows pulled away like waves, revealing fragmented scenes, illusions. She saw children playing, their faces bright but distorted, laughter echoing like bells of doom. "Join us," they chimed again, their eyes flickering with mischief. Were they real? Were they lost souls like Sam? "No!" Claire shouted, shaking her head to rid herself of the grotesque images. Each rejection felt like battling weights pulling her deeper into despair. Out of the swirling darkness, shapes emerged, grotesque figures moving in jerking motions, arms stretching unnaturally, attempting to weave around her as if wanting to entrap her. "You can't escape," they rasped, voices dripping with malice. Determination sparked within her again. "I will find him." She sprang from the wall. The shadows recoiled as if her words were fire, revealing a narrow path. With no other choice, she dashed forward. The darkness twisted, but Claire faced it, driving deeper. The air grew thicker, suffocating, each inhalation a battle against despair. A low, gnawing dread pulsed through her mind, a thought dreadfully familiar. Memories of her life with Sam, the laughter they shared, the bedtime stories, it all threatened to slip away into the murky void. Then, a flicker of light broke through again, far ahead. Claire charged toward it, heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The shadows lashed out, claws grasping for her legs, dragging her down. "No! No!" Claire screamed, kicking and thrashing. Yet, in the depths of her panic, she felt a pulse of something deeper, a whisper of hope slithering up her spine. "Mommy!" That sound pierced through her fear, the wail of her child igniting her resolve. "Sam!" she bellowed, drawing strength from the very core of her being. With a final push, she broke free from the grasping shadows and lunged into the light. The illumination engulfed her, and for a moment, she was suspended, alive, whole. But it was fleeting. As she swung through, the light dimmed, and she was thrust into a new, chaotic space, an endless expanse of mist and shifting shadows. Atmosphere heavy, Claire's breath hitched. Behind her, the shadowy forms writhed, sustained by her fading hope. The air buzzed with anticipation, yet something stirred in the mists ahead, a figure, hazy but familiar. "Mom?" The voice trembled like a thread ready to snap. A flicker of her heart recognized it instantly, but dread curled its cold fingers around her throat. Before she could call out, the figure dissolved into swirling shadows. But this time, they bore no laughter. They howled, a cacophony that clawed at her sanity. And far off in the foggy distance, a mournful cry rose, a sound of anguish that promised nothing short of disaster. Sam! Where was he? As she plunged deeper into the chaos, she felt an unmistakable weight. It was the truth that lay hidden in the darkness, waiting to unravel. When she discovered the truth, would it shatter her or set her free? The fog thickened, wrapping around Claire like a living shroud. Her heart pounded painfully as she stumbled backward against an unseen barrier, gasping. The echoes of the mournful cries seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, a symphony of despair that gnawed at her resolve. "Sam!" she shouted, her voice cracking with desperation. Silence followed, a pregnant pause that made her skin crawl. She inhaled sharply, tasting something foul, like decay. The shadows danced around her, tighter now, crawling at the edges of her peripheral vision, their shapes flickering unnaturally. What was this place? Claire's gut twisted, and dread gnawed at her from the inside. In her heart, she recognized a stark truth: this was no ordinary darkness. It was a living entity, feasting on fear, feeding on her despair. It wanted her to break, to give in. Then, it happened again. A voice, small but familiar, reached through the chaos. "Mom, help me!" Claire's breath caught in her throat. "Sam!" she called again, stumbling toward the sound, each step pulling her deeper into the haze. The shadows moved restlessly, whispering promises of bad dreams and lost hopes. "Stay with us, you belong here." "No." Claire felt defiance rise within her. "I won't give in." With renewed purpose, she surged forward, but the mist thickened, wrapping her limbs in cold tendrils, binding her with every word. The cries from the distance grew louder, more frantic, and she could barely make out the words through the fog. "Mommy, please." She pushed through the suffocating grip of the shadows, fighting for each step as the ground quaked beneath her. Panic throbbed in her chest as the cries took on a haunting tone, echoing through her mind. The cold clawed at her heart, weaving ties of despair that threatened to draw her under. As she moved, flashes of vision taunted her sights of Sam trapped, lost in a prison of darkness, his spirit flickering like an ember. The shadows around her shifted, taking form, and eyes opened everywhere in the depths of the darkness. They watched her. Waited. A creature lunged from the shadows, a shape that twisted and writhed as it approached. Eyes like deep voids stared straight into her soul. Panic surged again, urging her to flee, but she couldn't abandon Sam. "Get away from me!" she screamed, summoning strength once more. The creature paused, a flicker of something human crossed its face, but just as quickly, the shadows swallowed it whole, leaving only anguished laughter. "No! I want to forget him!" Claire shouted, her tears blending with the invisible mist that surrounded her. "I want to lose you, Sam." Then, out of the thickening fog, a dark figure stepped forward. This time, it was clear enough, its features distorted but recognizable, a figure she had held in her arms countless times, her son. "Mommy," the sorrow in his voice cut through her like a blade. "Sam. I'm coming." But as she reached out, the shadows lunged again, twisting her grasp, pulling her away. "Don't listen to him, he's ours," they hissed, voices echoing like thunder in her mind. She fought, her body screaming against the weight of despair that threatened to overwhelm her. Images of loss surfaced, of moments she'd never get back, echoes from a life she wanted to protect. In the chaos, another scream pierced the veil, a sound so desperate, it felt like ice through her veins. "Mom! Don't leave me!" Her resolve crystallized as she pushed against the malevolent force, tears streaming down her face. "I want to let them take you." She leaned deeper into the shadows, feeling the truth unfolding, her fears, her grief. But truth and light came at a price. "Sam!" Claire screamed one last time, knowing she may be tearing down the walls of her own soul. Yet, the moment her voice shattered the void, the shadows flared, and the figure of her son flickered again. What had she awakened? She stood at the precipice of revelation, dread gripping her like a vice. The shadows whispered, "You've unlocked the door. What lies beyond will change you forever." With the shadows swirling around her, what would she find? Would she uncover the very truth that could either shatter her world or lead her to salvation? In that moment, Claire realized, the line between light and dark had blurred. The true horror was yet to reveal itself. The shadows pulsed like a heartbeat, spinning relentlessly around Claire as the tether of her resolve began to fray. "Sam!" She cried out again, the desperation in her voice aching and raw. The mist thickened, wrapping tighter around her limbs, but she fought against it, fueled by a fierce motherly instinct. Suddenly, the figure of her son materialized before her, barely visible through the shifting gloom. Sam's features flickered with a terrifying clarity amidst the chaos. "Mommy, help!" His voice was a ghostly echo, laced with terror, pulling at every fiber of her being. Claire stepped forward, determined to break through the fog. "I'm here!" she yelled, scrambling toward him, but the shadows lunged, reaching for her with dark, clawing hands. They whispered sweet lies, wrapping deceit around her heart. "You can't save him. Give in to us. Accept your fate." "No." Claire's voice rang out, drowning the sinister whispers. Anger ignited inside her, a raging flame that fought against the icy grip encasing her heart. "I will not lose him." But the shadows thickened, twisting shapes around her like serpents, closing in. A primal fear gripped her, but just as quickly, she remembered their laughter, their joy. She recalled the warmth of Sam's hand in hers, the moments that made everything worth it. As each memory surged, it illuminated her heart, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. "Sam! Hold on!" Claire shouted, her voice fierce and unwavering. "I'm coming for you." She couldn't afford to falter. With a deep breath, she forced herself to plunge deeper into the rolling fog, every step pushing her through the weight of despair. She felt the pull of the shadows but pressed onward, thoughts of her son driving her fiercely forward. "Mommy!" Sam's voice now was more insistent, and it sent a shockwave of determination through Claire's veins. "Please!" Through the mist, the ground shifted, and Claire saw him again. The light at the end of the passage flickered like a fragile candle flame. The shadows recoiled slightly, sensing her fierce determination. She fought against the tendrils grasping at her with renewed resolve. "We'll find a way. Just keep calling for me. Mommy." His voice echoed painfully, the desperation thinly cloaked in an otherworldly resonance. "You must hurry." Claire sprinted, pushing through the suffocating grip of darkness. "Just a little further," she urged herself, every heartbeat pulsing with determination. The shadows howled in response, their anger palpable. They lunged forward, attempting to snare her feet, but she leapt, eyes locked onto the flickering light expunging the mist. It felt tangible, as if reaching it could spark a chance for her and Sam, but the joyful beacon was teasingly far. "Come back." The shadows hissed, knives of doubt slicing through her optimism. "You belong to us. He is lost." But Claire shook her head defiantly. "No. You're not taking him. You will never have us." With one final push fueled by sheer will, she broke free from the clutches of despair. Claire shot toward the light, feeling its warmth wash over her like a cleansing tide. The shadows shrieked as if the light burned them, and Claire surged onward, darkness shattering around her. In an explosion of brightness, Claire broke through and fell into a radiant expanse, a world where warmth thrummed in the air and light wove through trees like golden ribbons. And at the center, blinking in wonder, was Sam. "Mommy!" His joy was raw, radiant, and Claire crushed him to her with a fierce embrace that chased away the shadows clinging to her heart. "I thought I lost you," she breathed, relief washing over them. Tears streamed down her face, the weight of her journey falling away. But after a moment of warmth, shadows chased at the edges of their newfound sanctuary, whispering promises and threats. "You cannot stay, you belong to the darkness." "No," Sam shouted, holding tight to his mother. "We will never go back." In that instant, Claire understood the darkness was infinitely powerful, but it thrived on fear and despair. They could choose to reject it, together. "Join us," the tainted voices wailed. But Claire held tightly to Sam, her heart blazing with love. "We are not yours," she cried. "You have no power here." The shadows howled, recoiling from the warmth of their bond. "You cannot escape." But this time, Claire felt that the darkness was not the end, it was only a memory of what they had faced, lingering as a reminder. Hand in hand, Claire and Sam turned their backs on the darkness and stepped forward into the light. The mist parted, and the shadows shrank away, disappearing from sight. For the first time since they had entered these cursed woods, Claire felt truly free. "We're safe now," she whispered, hugging Sam tightly as they ventured deeper into the light. Together, they walked toward an endless ribbon of sunlight that enveloped them, fostering the hope that had almost slipped through their grasping fingers. The weight of the world fell away with every step, and the warmth of love surged brighter and brighter until the darkness was just an echo of a once haunting truth. No more fear, no more shadows, only the promise of tomorrow. As they embraced the new dawn, Claire glanced back for a moment at the dark woods receding in the distance, a shiver running down her spine. But she held on to Sam tightly, knowing that they had triumphed over the shadows. It was a story they'd share, a truth forged in love and courage. Whatever lay ahead, they would face together. "Now, here's what I need from you, my awesome friends. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support and secure your front row seat for the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let everyone know these tales are too gripping to miss. And hey, don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. I'm dying to hear what you think. So, do it. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show some love. Your support means everything.